Well, hey everybody, John Ritlin here, and this is a retro review where I'm going to talk about another one of my favorite wrestling rivalries, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart in 1994. Even though this pretty much was going on at the end of 93 and then into a little bit of 1995, this is mainly going to just be focused on the 94 aspect. Though, let's be perfectly honest, this feud could have gone on for like 3-4 years if they really wanted to milk it. It could have gone off and actually would have done some great business. But much like my CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy video that I did about their rivalry, link up here if you'd like to check that out. And I also talked about this feud in my Memories of Owen Hart video that I just did on his birthday. I'm going to touch on a little more of this and talk about just why it's one of my favorite rivalries. It's brother versus brother, younger brother, older brother, the sibling rivalry and everything. I'm an older brother to a younger sister, and it would have been weird to be an older brother to an older sister. That wouldn't have worked out at all. But with this, you could understand the jealousy. And even though Bret was so beloved, people were starting to gravitate towards Owen and were like, hey, I understand why Owen, feels the way he does. And yeah, damn it, I deserve, just as many accolades as my older sibling or whatever, older sister, older brother, whatever. So it spoke to a lot of people, and they really played it up and everything. And you could tell they respected each other, and they took care of each other in the ring, and I'll talk about their matches here in a bit. But just what was great about it is just all the realism and everything, and looking back on it, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look back on some of the stuff before the rivalry started, into the rivalry, and then a little bit afterwards. So with this, 1993, the very beginning of 1993, Owen had been teaming with Jim Neidhart in the 92, but then that ended up going by the wayside because Jim got released. You then had Owen team up with Coco Beware as part of High Energy. That was sort of dropped. And then Owen would start a singles career in 93. Meanwhile, Bret Hart is WWF champion. It was WWF at the time, beat Razor Ramon. He then lost it to Yokozuna at Mania 9. And then Hogan, before Money in the Bank was a thing, cashed in his opportunity to beat Yokozuna and become champion, plummeting Bret right back down the card. He did become King of the Ring in 1993, and then had that feud with Jerry Lawler. They was supposed to culminate at, Survivor Series 93, but nope, Jerry Lawler had some kind of sexual assault allegation thing that may or may not have been true. Who the fuck knows? I'm not going to speculate about that on here, though I will say Jerry Lawler was and always will be a creep. Let me just say that much. But you had that from there where the Bret Owen feud really was starting. And then you go back to what Owen was doing in the beginning of 93. Like he had, just begun a singles career and everything. They were doing a WWF versus USWA, which was Memphis. And Owen had actually beaten Papa Shango for the main title. Yes, remember Papa Shango? Well, Charles found the right gimmick for himself when it came to the Godfather. That's who it was. The Godfather. It was the Godfather. Do you get it? Did I slam the joke in your face enough? But so Owen's a champion. He was, and since they were WWF guys, they were pretty much loathed in Memphis because of this feud. Well, unfortunately, Owen's involvement had to end because he suffered an injury and had to take some time off. Okay, he had to take some time off. Cool. Then we get to Survivor Series. Now, from the King of the Ring, tournament and everything, and Bret being King of the Ring, you're thinking, okay, he's going to get a championship opportunity. Nope, they gave it to Lex Luger, and that didn't work out at all. At all. But then we have the brothers. We had Bret Owen, and Keith and Bruce versus, it was supposed to be Jerry Lawler in his nights. Nope, it was Shawn Michaels in his nights. Which I want to say, one of them was Greg Valentine. One of them was, I believe, Don Morocco. I don't remember the other one was Barry Horowitz or who the fuck it was. I don't remember. I honestly do not fucking remember who the other night was. Please let me know in the comments. But from there, you get this match and everything, and all the Hearts had matching gear and everything. And Bruce and Keith hadn't been wrestling really for a good while. I think it'd been a few years. One had retired or both had retired and become firefighters. Or at least one did. I think it might have been Keith. But so, Owen ends up doing this one spot where he ends up running into, Owen runs into Bret. Would have been weird if he ran to himself. Knocks Bret off the guardrail, or into the guardrail, and just Bret is just, all selling everything. Owen feels bad, but then ends up getting pinned. And he is the only one eliminated. So right there is where you start the rivalry. The Hart brothers end up eliminating everybody else. And they end up being the sole survivors. Owen comes back out. He's furious and everything. I was checking on you and my my heart and everything. My willingness to make sure my older brother was okay bit me in the ass and everything. I'm always in your shadow, always this kind of stuff. And you could see it. Even if it wasn't being said, even if it wasn't being said on the mic, you could just feel it. You could feel all this tension. And then from there, they start teaming back up. They seem to have, just gotten their, all their issues quelled. And, okay, they challenged the Quebecers for the tag team titles at the Royal Rumble 94. And, okay, both men are also going to be involved in the Royal Rumble, both Hart brothers, not the Quebecers. Because it would take a while for one of the Quebecers to get a singles push. I'm talking about PCO, by the way. How? How is he still wrestling? Whole point is, the Hart brothers, Owen's in there, Bret's in there, but Bret has a knee injury, will not tag Owen, though, because he's like, I can handle it. Bret ends up getting, the referee ends up stopping the match. Bret cannot continue. He simply can't. The Quebecers end up retaining by forfeit. Owen's pissed off, but okay, everything's fine. Owen's like, I understand. You're my older brother. You know better. I'm just young and zealous. Helps Bret up. And then just kicks his knee, starts beating the shit out of him and everything, and leaves. He's leaving, screaming down the aisle in the camera. He's selfish. I could have won the tag titles. All this. And then, the goddamn promo. Oh God, I love the goddamn promo so much. But, and I said it again in the memories of Owen Hart video, but it just bears repeating. I believe it was Todd Pettengill. It was Todd Pettengill or Sean Mooney. I think it was Pettengill. But Owen's talking and everything. My brother's Bret's always selfish and everything. I could have won this. And Bret, your selfishness cost us, and that's why I kicked your leg out of your leg. It's something like that. But just I kicked your leg out of your leg line. Why that always makes me laugh, I don't know. And I get nothing but love and respect for Owen. As a fan, I miss Owen to this day. But just, I kicked your leg out of your leg. That just, God damn it. That is just absolutely just fucking wonderful. But from there, Owen was in the Royal Rumble. I want to say he was like number 5 or something like that. No, let's see. Because you had the Steiners at 1. And they had the Steiners in there. And it was one of the Samoans. So it was one Steiner, one Samoan. Then another Steiner. And then it was Quang. And Quang blinded, I believe, Rick. And then, Owen was number 5. And then Owen was in there for a bit, but he wasn't there very long because then Diesel came in and Diesel cleaned house and ended up eventually tossing out Owen. So Owen, after that great, heel turn and everything, didn't really do all that much at the Rumble, which was a little disappointing. I think they should have saved him for just a little bit after Diesel had thrown out a few people and had put somebody else out there or something like that. Not to say you need to have Owen and Bret face off. I wasn't saying that. You could have had Owen eliminated even a little bit later. But maybe it would have been kind of cool and he could have had some moments. But still, it was what it was. He got to eliminate somebody. I believe Rick Steiner. I don't think he got to eliminate anybody else. But then Bret enters the Rumble and it's like 26, 27. And he's out there limping and everything and selling. And him and Lex Luger eventually go over the top rope at the same time because Vince still had a fucking boner for Lex Luger. All that beef, pal. All that. Ruined my voice doing not the Luger impression because I can't, my shirts aren't too tight, Billy. But I ruined my voice doing the Vince impression during a women, another rant I did about the current state of the women's division, and good God, it hurt. But it's just still Luger, all that beef. But that's pretty much why he kept pushing Luger. But still, at the end of that, they were, okay, who won? Who would you like to see face Yokozuna? And Luger did not get a lot of cheers, and Bret got overwhelming cheers. It finally took that. This is when Vince actually listened to the audience, by the way, as opposed to when he would just fold his arms, or he would hold his nose and give Kofi the title, or Becky the championships, or Seth the championship at Mania 35. then pretty much torpedo the company after that, except financially. But the whole point is, from there, Luger's pushed down the card. Owen, feeling that he deserved a chance, wanted to face his brother. Now, because both Lex and Bret won the Rumble, they would both each championship matches. Since Yoko was going to have to wrestle twice, Luger got the first shot on a coin flip. Bret was going to face suitable competition because it's like, okay, either Luger or Yokozuna is going to have to wrestle twice. If Luger won the championship, he would have won the championship and then dropped it to Bret like 2 hours later. So it's a good thing Yoko retained. But Bret was going to face suitable competition. Enter Owen. And that was something else. It was a classic match, best opening match in WrestleMania history, in my personal opinion. The stuff that they did, the great moves, the impact, the fact that they had such, great chemistry. I mean, it wasn't because, just because they were brothers, just because they were close like that, and obviously knew each other really well, had trained and, had wrestling in their blood, that doesn't mean that they were going to have the best chemistry. Because, as I mentioned before in another video, Jeff and Matt had some good chemistry, but I didn't care for their 2009 feud in WWE. They had better feuds in Impact. But even though they were goofy in Impact, they were still good. But Bret faced Owen, great match, great opening match, and then eventually the victory role was reversed, and Owen, 1, 2, 3, pins his older brother Bret. So now Owen's like, I knew I could do it. I knew I was better than you, Bret. I proved I could beat you, and did not say that he kicked his leg out of his leg. Very disappointed. But still, Luger loses his championship opportunity, loses the match against Yokozuna, and then you have Yokozuna face off against Bret later on. Bret manages to get the victory, and so Bret's psyche wasn't completely destroyed to where he didn't manage to win, or he couldn't win the title. He won the title, and Bret, even though he lost to his brother, Owen's just there seething. Bret's staying tall, the locker room celebrating with him, and Owen's just standing out there in the entranceway, just looking on disapprovingly. Because he's like, I beat my brother or whatever, and he's still doing better things. It's like, I can't win. Even when I win, I lose. And from there, Bret had some great matches. He had some really good matches on Raw, including one match I'm going to talk about at length at some point in another video. Maybe do a review of the entire episode of Raw. But the July 11th, 1994 edition of Raw, where Bret Hart faced 1, 2, 3 Kid. And this is right after Owen said, okay, you know what, Bret? I beat you at Mania. You may have won the title. I'm going to duplicate what you did the previous year, but do it better. Owen enters the King of the Ring tournament, qualifies for the King of the Ring tournament, wins it, much like his brother did. That tournament maybe wasn't as good as an E3 edition, but still, and that might have had something or absolutely everything to do with Art Donovan's commentary. Sweet Christ, what was that? What in God's name was that? I don't think he's a bad guy, and I don't know if I'm speaking ill of the dead. I probably am, because I think he might have passed away. But he was terrible at commentary. And I know he was a celebrity, but still, fucking great. Or he had some kind of name and clout, and it was just bad. But Owen wins the King of the Ring. He's the King of Hearts, Owen Hart. And he wants to challenge his brother. Owen and Jim make their presence known during that match, or at sometime after that match. And even though they don't interfere, and it's a good thing they didn't. It was a classic match. And the small venue, commentary, everybody just stands up and applauds, and it helped make 1, 2, 3 Kid into even a more elite performer, or seen as a more elite performer. And that's the kind of stuff that Bret could do. I'm not saying he did with everybody, but Bret more often than not. Yes, I do tend to praise Bret an awful lot. Bret is my favorite wrestler of all time. I'm always going to praise Bret. I'm going to mostly take his side on pretty much everything, even if I don't always agree with stuff. And it wasn't Seth Rollins' fault. That is one thing I don't agree on. And you know what I'm talking about. From there, they had a great classic match at SummerSlam 94. Great cage match. One of the best cage matches in history. If you figuratively held, something against my head or whatever, or I don't want to say threaten my life. It's like if you figuratively, told me, hey, you have to make a decision, or a split-second decision. It's Bret versus Owen, or it's Magnum versus Tully at Starrcade 85. But the whole point is back to the Bret Owen match. Everything just Owen leaping for the door, the great impact that they told. It wasn't a bloody massacre. It was a great wrestling match with some high spots and some impactful spots. But it was a way to, it was a way to build the feud, but the feud didn't end. It was a way to pretty much culminate the feud, but the feud didn't end. And the idea was, originally, rumors were that Owen was actually going to win it at a house show and enter SummerSlam as champion, and then drop it back to Bret, which would have been pretty interesting because originally Bret's, first title win happened on a house show. So it would have been another way to kind of tie the whole thing together. In fact, I kind of wish I would have done that, even though I like the fact that Bret got to hold the title for about 7 months. From there, that great match, Bret does manage to get the victory, trapping Owen's leg. See, Owen, it was your leg that got kicked out of your leg or trapped in the cage, and Bret wins. There was a beatdown afterwards with, Jim Neidhart was joining in, this kind of stuff. So it was because Jim Neidhart just come back to the company. Or was going in and out of the company. And it was great. Owen still got to keep his heat. The feud did still go on. And then from there, even they teased some stuff on TV and stuff like that. But then you had Bret enter a feud with Bob Backlund. And this is another thing I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about Bob Backlund's heel turn and stuff like that. And at a later date and go really in depth on it and talk about, how much it did help extend his career and did add a second life to it. But he faces Bob Backlund. There's this whole thing where it was Owen and Backlund's corner, and it was Bulldog and Bret's corner. And Bulldog at one point, Bulldog had just come back to the company, and he ran and just knocked himself out on the steel steps. Just colder than a friggin' lawyer's heart. I mean, good Lord. But the parents were at ringside. Well, I mean, Helen for sure was. I think Stu was. But it's a good thing they had Helen do it, because Stu at that point had really had a lot of health issues. I mean, he beat his body up and everything, and he was old, so it made sense. But Owen is Owen is saying at one point, to Helen, he's trying to get, his mom's attention, and the match itself wasn't that bad. It was better than their Mania 11 match, but the crossface chicken wing, he got, Backlund got it on Bret. Bret wouldn't give up. Well, Owen's having this, hey, mom, you got to throw in the towel. Look, it's your son. Your son's getting beat up. It's just all this stuff. And she finally throws in the towel. And Bob Backlund wins the championship for, the second time. And then drops it to Diesel 3 days later. And that went so well. But from there, Bret was upset at Owen. Bret got to face off against Diesel. Owen got some ultimate revenge against him. He thought. But he did get some revenge against him by stopping Bret's title reign. He's like, I could have beaten you and should have beaten you at SummerSlam. You shouldn't have won the title of Mania. I'm going to screw you over. And then they had, skirmishes and this kind of stuff. Bret faces off against Diesel in a pretty damn good match at Royal Rumble 95, at least in my opinion. Even with the DQ finish and just every goddamn person running in. I think a Brooklyn Brawler could have run in. I think they could have the Gobbledygooker run in, even though I think Hector Guerrero was wrestling for WCW at the time. But that's right, Hector Guerrero was a Gobbledygooker. Sorry, I believe my bad gimmicks got me off topic there. So, big schmoz and everything, stuff at the end. So, there's Backlund, Owen, I believe Jarrett, Shawn. Various people ran in. Well, I know Shawn, Backlund, and Owen did. And it was weird because you would see Shawn and Owen feud later in the year. But at the time, they were both heels. That ruins all that stuff. Diesel retains the title. Bret does not regain it, and Bret is pissed. Bret attacks Owen and Backlund during their entrances to the Rumble. One of the worst Rumbles of all time, by the way. The 60-second interval one. I still say the 1999 one was worse, but that's me. So, from there, I think they had a no DQ match or something like that on it was either, I want to say it was a February Raw, easy for me to say. But after that seemed to blow out the feud. And then by Mania, Bret's facing Bob Backlund, but not for the title, not a very good I Quit match. Owen's back in tag teams, brings out Yokozuna as his mystery partner, beats Smoking Guns. They hold the tag title for a while. Bret enters feuds with various people, Isaac Yankem, the future Kane, and stuff like that. So there's so much stuff going on. And then they would eventually reunite as members of the Hart Foundation, the new Hart Foundation, which I enjoyed. But with this feud, I always just think of just the classic, the promos, the realism of it, and the great matches that they had, that Mania 10 match, that SummerSlam 94 match. And I'm sure they had plenty of great matches on house shows. But then, you have all the other aspects, like just the Backlund stuff continues. Because Backlund's heel turn started by by losing to Bret, being unable to beat him on a Superstars taping, and Backlund just snapping. And then that would culminate months later, and Owen would still be involved in that. So there was all this intertwined stuff, and it was just really, really well done, in my personal opinion. So that's why Bret versus Owen is one of my favorite wrestling rivalries ever. It's got to be top 5 for me. I mean, and yes, okay, maybe some of the territory stuff doesn't always speak to me, and some of it does. But it was top 5. I don't know if it'd be top 1 or number 1, but it'd be damn close. I do consider it just better than the CM Punk Jeff Hardy feud, mainly because Bret versus Owen lasted longer. But, anyway, that's all I have to say. So what do you have to say? Let me know what you guys thought of the Bret Owen feud. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I will see you soon.